What's going on, Josiah, who asked last night, are we still pursuing Keyshawn Blackstock? He seems to be a very good replacement at guard. Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, I think he's a guy that they're involved with. I wouldn't say he's a sure take. I think Chris Otto's the main guy that I've heard, but I think he's a guy that, from what I got from my FSU intel, FSU has looked at him very closely as far as I think they want to evaluate him in person or evaluate his film in just to see, and then I would not be surprised if you see official visits set up for December. That's kind of my feeling with that. I think he recently visited South Carolina, and then I think he has Oregon and some other teams in there. But he's a guy that I think you could see an official visit set up because there's not. I've said people most of their action is going to be from the portal, so I think they're probably going to add like one or probably two high school at the most, left in class, and I think Keyshawn certainly would fit that mold.
It's funny. You get to November and people are saying, well, who's going to be here for spring? So talk to us about that, Michael.
I will say a few guys: Hakeem Williams, Lucas Simmons. Um, I want to say Keldrick Falk as well, are guys that I've heard that early enroll. I'll have all of them up there so people can read them and go through them. But those are certainly just some of the guys. But we have a full breakdown of that coming up on a story coming. I don't want to give away every guy.
DL most likely. So just talk to us about D-line recruiting if you don't mind.
I would say for me right now, it'd be Derek Hunter out of JUCO that they originally recruited. He went to, obviously committed to FSU quickly, and then kind of got off that, and then committed and ended up at Texas A&M. Then he hit the transfer portal, went to JUCO, and then now he's back to recruiting again. I think Mississippi State, Texas, Miami, and Florida State have all offered. FSU's the only official visit he set up. There's a strong, long connection with Odell Higgins. I think FSU sits in the best spot. The fact that they're the only official visit he's set up already in December, I think that's significant. So that would be the guy I circle. We'll see if Jordan Hall shows up this weekend. He says to be on our list. Although FSU sent me, our my FSU intel, I got a list from the FSU side of things of what guys are becoming this weekend, and I didn't spot him originally on there, so I'm continuing to check with Jordan to make sure follow through that he's going to be there. But I would say right now for me it would be Derek Hunter. That would be the guy that I think is more likely at the defensive tackle position. I know you mentioned defensive line. There's other defensive ends like Reuben Bain is certainly a guy they're heavy on and hoping to get an official visit in December for. Wilkie Denard is a guy that's committed to Auburn, but with all their flux with coaches, that might not. I'm certainly. I don't think that's. I think that's a pretty shaky commitment. So there's several other guys that are in there that I'll cover, but I think those guys kind of jump out to me right now.
Garnet guy is like the Florida State offense in terms of just running right at you, because Garnet guy has like a six-pack of questions here, Mike. We'll go to the first two, and they're portal questions. How many portal offensive linemen do you think Florida State takes? And then do you think they go after a portal tight end or a JUCO tight end?
Yeah, first one, 2 or 3, I would say maybe to 4. Portal offensive linemen because they're replacing several guys that are on there. They loaded up last year, so I would say 2 to 4 between there. Maybe I would say 3. I think for 3 for sure, but I would say that number. And then on tight end, yes, it's looking more likely that their actions will be in the tight end, will be in the portal because I haven't heard anything as far as a high school tight end. I know Deuce Robinson's the guy that they're running back to make another run at, but I think it looks more likely that it's going to be a portal tight end.
Michael, do you think there's any chance of cracking the top 10 for this 23 class?
I don't think it gets to that point unless you can somehow pull a guy, Jordan Hall or somebody significant to that level. Now, we'll say if they measure the portal and they measure the high school together, I think you would have a top 10 class based on what I feel the type of talent that they're going to get from the portal. But from a high school standpoint, I don't think it'll be the top 10. I do think top 15 where they're at, top 12, I could see that happening. But to the 15 or 10 range, that would be tough for them this year based on the targets they're still after.
Optimus Climb asks somewhat of a related question. Talking blue chippers, Florida State currently has 7 guys that are top 300-ish on the commit list. Over under 2.5 more blue chip commits by ESD. What do you think, Michael?
I think they'll end a few, maybe one or two that fall into that category as far as top 300. But I think there's still that's mainly a guess. That's not me knowing for sure. But I think a majority of a lot of this that's left is going to be there's going to be several. Most of it's going to be portal related, but there'll be some in there that I think they're still active with that is certainly a possibility. Some of them are officially visiting this weekend. You have Isaac Smith, a four-star DB that's visiting this weekend. Edwin Joseph, who I feel really good about, is a four-star that I like a lot. So certainly Cedric Baxter is still working on, and several others. So I think there's more, but I think there's also going to be some new names that visit in the month of December that we haven't really talked about that I think you're going to see there. So I think there's still a lot to be determined, but I think a couple could happen for FSU. I'm not going to, based on I got to wait to see what happens with the visits and then go from there.
With the season going the way it has, do you think Hakeem Williams is solid? When he committed, it was still said it would go down to signing day. What do you think now?
I'm in the same boat as you. Warpath, know when it first happened, I was kind of like, yeah, he's still a South Florida kid, and South Florida kids always seem to bring drama. But man, he has been their bell cow. He's taken that thing by the bull by the horns. I mean, he's the guy that I'll let you guys read it with Brock Glenn's Q&A, but he was the guy that was certainly on Brock. I think he's actively and heavily recruiting. He's visiting FSU on Friday, then officially visiting FSU on the last weekend before you sign early. So I think things are good. Obviously, there's still a slight small chance that he could visit somewhere else between that time, but that's a very short time. And I don't get the sense of anywhere that he's planning on visiting anywhere other than FSU. So I feel pretty good that he's going to sign with FSU.
Garrett asks about the Aggie defensive end who entered the portal, and then also on Trey Sanders, if you don't mind remarking, at least early on, what you think about those two players.
Yeah, Donnell Harris, defensive end from Miami, that went to Texas A&M. He entered the portal. Didn't play a lot, so that's something you gotta. Not that that's a criteria for everything, but I'm sure for FSU, if they're going to add defensive end, I think they want somebody whether they know really well his skill set, or they kind of want or somebody that's been productive. I think with Donnell, I think there's certainly a connection there. I think that's a guy that maybe they kick the tires and try to check out just to see what it looks like. I think that's kind of where they'll be at with that once he hits the portal. But I can't say for sure there'll be a pursuit, but I think he's one they'll definitely look into. I've already mentioned a few guys on the boards as far as, or one guy on the board, defensive end that's already in the portal from the FCS. But I think Donnell's a guy they'll probably look around and kick around and just to check to see kind of what if that's a guy that fits what they're looking for. And then Trey Sanders, I addressed him also last night, where he's a guy that last year if we did this, definitely he'd be a guy that we were waiting on him last year. Trey, you're a little late. They were waiting on him last year, but now I think with them being so stacked, I can't see them pursuing another running back from the portal unless somebody leaves, like say a Trey Benson decides to leave after his incredible season. I can't see them going after another portal running back unless somebody leaves.
And Go Noles says, I would be curious how an internal FSU ranking order would compare to FSU fans. I'll extend that out to maybe the ranking system for On3. Any idea who would be the highest on the internal FSU list? So, in short, the coaches, if they were ranking and speaking in confidence about who they really like in this class, is there somebody, Michael, that maybe wouldn't be a 4 borderline 5-star player that they think, man, we've got ourselves a steal here?
Yeah, I certainly I think they love them all, but I think there's a few guys in there. I think Quindarius Jones, a guy that's officially visiting this weekend, they were all, through the moon, all over the moon on that kid. I mean, they love him. I think Jabril Rawls, who's another guy that's visiting this weekend that's committed to FSU, they feel like they got to steal with that guy. I think even guy like Jaden Jones, who they really hit up early, JUCO defensive end that we talk about Keldrick Falk and we talk about Lamont Green Jr. and certainly we should, because those are phenomenal ends. But I think I think Jaden is kind of the off the radar guy that I think fans are probably not as excited about, but I think the FSU staff is just elated with that kid and what he can do. I would have said Vondravius Jacobs, but now he's blown up to a 4-star, so I can't really put him in that category. So I would say those are kind of the main guys off the top of my head.
Tyler Blevins asks, Michael, is FSU looking to add a portal defensive end? We talked about specifically a prospect from Texas A&M, but they've hit it out of the park the last
Mm-hmm.
couple of years in the portal with what they've done on the edge. What say you, generally speaking, about defensive end?
Yeah, I think it's almost a guarantee that they get a defensive end. I mean, if there was a most likely guy to leave, I think it would be Jared Verse for this year for a player on the team. I think they're going to add another guy. They might add two. I wouldn't surprise me if they added two. Truman Jones is one I mentioned, FCS. I want to say he's from Harvard. 26 and a half tackles for loss, 14 sacks in his career. FSU loves that FCS, so they could have somebody like that. I know there's mutual interest there, so I think a visit down the line is certainly expected. FCS, for those that don't know, they just started this week and hitting the portal where you can hit it. So I think that's a guy. There's certainly other guys I have my eye on. One rhymes with starving. Yeah, that could enter the portal. Um,
Oh,
so I so I think he's a guy. There's several guys, but that's why I don't. That's why I told people when I did the portal, it's like, look, I'm not going to talk about guys that aren't in there yet, but they are certainly names that they know that they feel like is going to be in the portal that FSU feels like, hey, they're the team to beat.
Michael, one final question from Tony F on the boards there is Brock and EE. I believe you've answered this before, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, he is. Actually, that was the one question I forgot to ask Brock, so I texted him after our interview, and he said, "Yes, I'll be there in January." So yes, Brock is a. I think Brock is a early enrollee, and that's what most quarterbacks are. To be honest, I mean, most quarterbacks are early enrollees. It's very rare you find one in high school that isn't. So yes, Brock will be an early enrollee.
All right, I'll wedge one more in here because I just like the phrasing. I did not see a lot of info on Jaden Jones. Can you bless us, Michael? Can you bless the people with a scouting report on him? Also, from what I've seen, Rawls is a 4-star and 3-star clothing. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think the second part, yes, I would agree with Rawls is probably a low 4-star for me. I think he's been the most productive defensive back out of any guy that they have that's committed. I think with Jaden Jones, I think the main thing is like they actually went over there. There was a JUCO wide receiver they were recruiting, and Jaden was on the same team, and they saw Jaden an explosive burst off the, I mean, very fast off the edge. That's the thing he does well. He gets off the line, gets off his blocks quick. So that's what jumped out to them, to the staff, of what they loved. I think I think with his game, obviously he's 240, so you want to see more strength and he finishes very well, but you want to see him. I think technique wise, I think there's some stuff that they can really take his game to another level as far as I think they can improve. Some things with the hand placement, how he rips, how he uses his body laying is because he's 6 foot, 4 or 5, so he has certainly a lot of link to him. But I think that burst off the edge, I think that's what jumped out to FSU and why he's a guy that I think they're fairly excited about.